Man-made. I'm posting the following journal entries, and whether the author was a relative, friend, or friend of a friend of mine, you will never know. This is for my own protection. Currently, I am typing all of this on a stolen laptop. After I finish copying the entry and posting this blog, I intend to destroy this laptop and all links to myself. You will never know me if you are reading this, but know this entry is unique. Interpret it as you will, but I believe the population deserves truth. The following is an excerpt from the diary of Dr. Nathan Stone II, a former research scientist for the U.S. government. I have had this for some time with instruction to release it at this current date and this current time. July 4th, 1947. I couldn't really believe that anything I heard today would ever let me live life the same ever again. From the time I woke up this morning to about now, as I am trying to drink away everything I heard, nothing can let me look at any flesh-covered human the same. I got up this morning at about 4:30 to hear the two men knocking at my door. They told me they were from the government and that it was my duty to come with them, otherwise I would face federal charges for disruption of governmental affairs. After countless hours of being cramped in the back of a vehicle blindfolded, I was taken to a room where the Air Force commander was sitting under a dim light, with the smoke from his cigarette curving and seducing the air. I could have used one, but the son of a bitch went straight to business. The commander told me that everything I see and hear will have to be kept to myself to the grave, or else fines and hefty prison time will be facilitated to secure public security. I asked him why, and he immediately took me by the arm and led me to an operating table at another part of the base. On the table was a seemingly normal and attractive-looking man of about 25 years of age. He had bad burns on the entire left side of his leg, and his left arm had metal shards piercing his arm. As a doctor, I knew my duty and unconsciously asked for gloves, a surgical mask, and helped myself to the instruments lying on the table. The operations took about 6 straight hours. By the time I started to remove the shards from the arm, I noticed no bleeding upon removal of the shards. As I inspected the arm further, I realized that the metal shards were not sticking in, they were sticking out of his arm. It turned out that the man's entire left arm was made out of some iron or steel that I could not recognize, and it was very light and almost weightless. The leg was the normal human bone structure, but not the arm. I noticed the man's eyes open and staring at me as I began washing the instruments. The surrounding nurses and other doctors were shocked, but I told them to keep quiet. I asked the man if he was in any pain, and he replied on a little in his leg and not in his arm. I asked him what had happened quickly while the guard at the door fell asleep. I knew I had a limited amount of time to hear what the hell was going on. The man replied his name could not translate through any earthly language. He claimed he knew every language in our world. He then went on to say that he had escaped from his planet as it was about to be destroyed on a spaceship that was shot down by a U.S. missile. Without me asking, he went on to explain the birth and destruction of his planet. He said that his planet's name was also unable to be translated through the languages used on Earth also, but it was located some billions of light years and galaxies west of Mars. The planet he escaped was a project that was started millions of years ago by a robotic race of people that he and all the others of his populations worshipped as gods. The planet was very similar to Earth, except it was only 60% water instead of 70% like our planet, and it was completely set up into islands, in which each country was its own island with its own natural boundaries. There were about 16 different countries, and each had a system of government that was implanted by the robotic race. Each country was given its own set of rules and economic projects to take into business at the very beginning of its foundings. There were no stories about how the robotic race ever found these human creatures or where they came from. All they knew was that they were set on a planet to live, and nothing more. There was one robot that went from country to country reassuring each country that the superior race would help them and that they need to remain faithful. He lived among each society for thousands of years and taught them technological tricks that helped them further their advancement in technology at a faster rate than anyone on the earth could ever imagine. He told me stories about ways to levitate gravity to fly, and treatments to cancer and many other diseases. He went on to say that the one robot that lived among them was so loved by the people of his planet that they worshipped him as a god. They built altars to him, and erected statues in his name and sang songs to him. The superior robotic race was miscalculating why the entire planet's population was focusing all their zeal on that one robot and became sure that after all the work they put into finding that planet, their lack of praise was a miscalculation. They soon started destroying resources on the planet through storms and droughts they created. They launched new diseases that the one prophet robot could not cure. After the planet's humans still looked to the prophetic robot, the heads of the superior robot could still not calculate why the population could not determine their lack of zeal. The man went on to say that the robots were too smart. They could not see that emotions from humans demand a physical presence to believe in, not a representative prophet. The superior race then realized they had failed in creating a perfect human population and deprogrammed the prophet robot and started to launch a war to exterminate the human population on that planet. He said that the humans and robots have only one thing in common. They both don't ever give up at trying to survive, robots because they were programmed to, and humans because they know no other certainty in their existence other than to survive. The prophet robot was specifically set to bring the human race up to technology with the superior robot race, and it did just that. The only problem was that with the prophet shut down, the humans could no longer technologically advance on the same level as the robots. They knew they could defend their race against the robots for a few hundred years, but eventually they knew their defenses would be outdated. The humans apparently also knew that the planet with the lush resources that they had, which was similar to Earth, was almost impossible to find in space, so they knew the robots were going to come exterminate them through infantry tactics. The humans knew that they had to colonize elsewhere. To prepare, each nation created a new language that was impossible to be understood from robots. They created English, Chinese, Spanish, Arabic, French, German, and almost every other language on Earth. They were constantly being heard and watched by the robots, but the robots could only understand things through mathematical translation. The languages they created were unique and filled with too much standard error for robots to perceive. The humans were able to use this language to communicate with each country and sneak members of each country off the planet in search of another uninhabited planet. The man then went on to say that they found and colonized Earth. They set up the language system and colonies on Earth, but they lost communication with their home planet over time as the robots soon started intercepting their messengers. The robots could never get the messengers to speak because by this time, their new languages were ingrained in culture and the humans had forgotten their original mathematical language. The being went on to say that once the robots had fully advanced, they surrounded the remaining countries and began their Project Extinction. The man I was talking to said he served in his country's regiment in the last stand and lost his arm in the fight. He was able to manage to get in an escape ship and blast off in time to survive. He claimed he was the only one on that planet to survive the last battle. He claimed he was able to see the tomb of the prophet robot before he left, and he took the computer chip from its mainframe as a reminder of his home. After he escaped, he claimed he used the chip from the prophet to program his ship's computer unit to rebuild him another arm, and that explained his metal arm. The ship's mainframe was also able to help him understand the history of his planet and the superior robots, which he was taught as he had traveled many light years to reach his descendants on Earth. He said that when his ship crashed, the prophet chip was destroyed with the ship and he had lost his whole planet's history. As I began to ask him something else, the Air Force commander busted into the room with a group of about 20 black suit and tie government officials and about twice as many armed guards. They scolded and yelled at the guard for falling asleep and took me by the arm and led me out of the room to the car, where they again blindfolded me. August 10th, 1947. That being, contacted me through my radio. I was listening to the news, and it knew what I was thinking. It knew the last question I meant to ask it before I was rushed away from it. It didn't even have to repeat the question that was on my mind since I last saw it. I wondered for days on end what those robots would still want from us all this way away from them. In one sentence that broke apart in a static background, I could make out a brief statement before the voice disappeared. It said, "Humans fuel their power source.